Good morning and welcome to worship from our Old Ship Meeting House. Meeting House as a place of worship for First Parish in Hingham since 1681. This is where we have been gathering as times come and go and people come and go. We have gathered here as a congregation, First Parish in Hingham, Old Ship Church, Unitarian Universalist. And in this period of time, I've been privileged to be your minister, Reverend Ken Reed Brown. So welcome this morning, wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome. We begin, as we do each week, with a chime and then with a prelude from Christopher. This morning, Jamaican Dance number 2 by Oswald Russell. We begin. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you. We have gathered for worship wherever we may be, whoever we are. We've gathered. Whatever life has brought to us this week, this day, this moment, we have gathered and it is good. So to gather together in spirit, we feel our heart as one, feel our care for one another, know that our time together matters as we nourish our spirits, inspire our hands for whatever the days to come may bring to each of us and to all of us together. We have gathered in the spirit of love and friendship, and it is good. Our introit this morning will be shared by Rich Jensen. We walk in love, Deanna Witkowski. Rich.
We walk in love, united in purpose. join our hands and lift up one voice. We speak the truth with strength and compassion, resounding with hope and with courage and joy, resounding with courage and joy.
Thank you, Rich. Our chalice lighting words this morning will be offered by Kate Philbin. So Kate, thanks so much.
Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kate. With those words, I light the flaming chalice of our faith. And now we sing. We are indeed all welcome here in this virtual but real space. And we're going to sing. We're going to sit at the welcome table. It's number 407 if you have a hymn book in front of you. If you downloaded the words, if you haven't, the words are easy. We're going to sit at the welcome table one of these days. And amen to that. We're going to sit at the welcome table. Everybody, welcome. Well, welcome here once again to our time of worship from the Old Ship Meeting House. Welcome to old timers. Welcome to newcomers. If you are new and curious about this Old Ship Church, curious about Unitarian Universalism, you can go to our website, oldshipchurch.org, and find at least the beginnings of what we hope you will come to know, and we look forward to getting to know you as well. Fellowship Hour immediately follows this service. It's a time still on these same screens, same link, a time for additional conversation among us, all those who wish to stay. You just stay on the same link following the service. One additional announcement is from Janet Asnes, the president of our congregation. We've been searching for volunteers to help lead, be part of a team to lead our annual stewardship pledge drive. In fact, we have 2 wonderful volunteers, and Janet says we would need and welcome 2 more. So you've already got a team that's begun, and if you, just a couple of months of volunteering, if you'd like to be part of this effort, contact Janet. Our time for all ages will this week, as most weeks, be offered by Chloe Bride, our interim director of religious education. Chloe.
Hello, good morning, everyone. There is my screen. I hope you can see it. So our story this morning is called Magic Trash, and it's about Tyree Guyton and his art. It's by J.H. Shapiro. A winter chill whooshed down Heidelberg Street. Young Tyree Guyton buttoned his coat. Pop! His last button flipped into the gutter. He dove after it and then dug through frosty leaves. He pried a popsicle stick from the ice. He hoisted a bicycle wheel off the curb. He scooped up a baseball hat buried in the snow. Pockets clanking, Tyree darted home, a home on the east side of Detroit that already bulged with 10 children. Shop around, Tyree sang along with the radio as he unloaded the day's finds. His mama didn't earn enough money sewing and cleaning to buy new shoes, much less bikes and balls. So he zapped fun into amazing junk that others tossed away. Popsicle sticks became boards to build a house. The cap soared like a rocket ship. The wheels bounced, spokes jumped, dots danced. Let rockets fly, boards tower high, bounce, jump, and dance. Magic trash. You can see him thinking about it. Then one sunny day when Tyree was 9, his grandpa Sam, a house painter, plopped a brush into his hand. Paint the world, Grandpa said. Tyree dipped into Grandpa's cans of color, sloshing purple, slapping yellow, aiming his brush like a magic wand. Abracadabra. Tyree's shyness vanished. Sweet apples crunched when he glopped the red. He'd never seen Lake Huron, but now it splashed in a pool of blue. Like new, Grandpa said of a glistening ladder. Tyree smiled and swirled a shade of green. Other kids on the streets giggled and razzed. Look at his green face. Green junk. Still, as Tyree zoomed from bent bottle caps to rusty wheels, Grandpa Sam's words twirled in his head. Paint the world. I'm going to be an artist, Tyree said. His mama hung her head. That's not a job. He peered into Grandpa's glistening eyes. Tyree clenched his brush. He would be an artist, yes. Brush green and blues on wheels and shoes, slosh, slap, and slap, magic trash. When he grew up to be 16, Tyree too left the shapes and hues of Heidelberg Street to seek new life. He marched as a soldier. He inspected cars in a factory. He doused fires as a firefighter, but he never forgot about painting his world. So he enrolled in art school to learn more about colors, lines, and designs. At last, Tyree bolted back home to Heidelberg. When he returned, though, his street had changed. Houses sat deserted, creeping with spirits of owners who had run away from the neighborhood. Tyree tripped over trash, lots of trash. And troublemakers lurked. They snuck into hollowed houses and even set fire to one. Ooh, spirits whirled, new troubles swirled, kick, burn, and hurl, magic trash. No, cried Tyree, not on this street. His mama still lived in the same house. Grandpa Sam painted pictures inside now. Tyree grabbed his brush and burrowed through the rubbish. He cast spells on suitcases, toilets, and slide trombones. Before the colors dried, Grandpa Sam hurried out to help. They painted a busted bus, they tied shoes to trees, they flung broken bikes and cast off tires on burned out buildings and forgotten yards. And they painted faces of God in blue, black, and orange. You can see the faces of God here. Their street sparkled. And those are the houses that he's famous for. Some people squawked about garbage. A few neighbors complained to the city. The mayor and his helpers stomped. Some bulldozers rolled up to the project to crush every doll and board. You can't do that, yelled the neighbors as dust swooped to the treetops. Get out of here, others screamed. Tyree's trash is beautiful. Tyree scrambled to snatch a few pieces. This is my art, he cried. But the dots and the stripes and the baby dolls lay bashed and smashed and still. Tyree rubbed his eyes. Grandpa Sam poked at piles. Old houses talk, some neighbors squawk. Crash, bash, and smash, magic trash. He wasn't alone for long, though. We can help, the neighbors cried. Your colors and dots chased away those thieves. Together, they shoveled and swept and hauled in new trash. And then, after 8 years of painting and rebuilding, neighbors heard the wrecks screech a second time. Faces of God watched while the city crushed 2 more houses. No, Tyree yelled. Tyree and his neighbors were hopping mad. This street is ours, they said. We'll never quit. They marched downtown to tell their story to a judge and jury. The city argued that Heidelberg Street was a garbage dump. No, decided the court, it is art. Tyree's work survived. The next day, Tyree and his neighbors began anew, aiming their brushes like magic wands. Children sang as they hammered and spattered designs, and even former troublemakers returned, ready to rake, sweep, and build. United by trash, they cast a spell on the street, brightening their home for good. Word of Heidelberg Street spread far. It blazed across the air. Folks from Canada, Kenya, Japan scurried to the neighborhood. They stared. Wow, look at that. Tyrese waved his brush. Welcome to Heidelberg Street. And you can visit Heidelberg Street and the magic trash if you're ever in Detroit and enjoy Tyree's art and his dots. I hope you enjoyed that. A story of creating something out of what seemingly might be nothing, but instead is magic.
Thanks, Chloe. True story, all the more powerful since it's a true story. Thank you. We come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. A few of you have in advance sent me joy, sorrow, concern to light, for which to light candles. Others may wish to enter a joy, a sorrow, or a concern in chat, or simply hold something in your hearts. The 3 that have come to me, first from Janet Asnes. She asks for a candle of love and support for 2 of her nieces. The first of the 2 is about to start her weekly chemotherapy for the next 12 weeks. The second is having an ultrasound and more tests on Monday to hopefully eliminate cancer. We light a candle for the 2 of them and we send our prayers. I light another candle for Joan Drescher, who returned home this week to continue her recovery and rehab from a stroke suffered earlier this month. She sounds good, and we wish her continued progress in her rehab. And Kate Philbin asked for a candle for a friend of hers in Austin, Texas, and for all those in Texas who have been suffering this past week from the ravages of the storm, no heat for so many, and worries about water, the health of the water, or any water at all. And so we light a candle for all those caught in the storm in Texas and elsewhere. I light those candles, and I light the remaining candles for joys, sorrows, and concerns unspoken, yet deeply felt. We join now in a time of meditation, prayer, and shared silence. We pause, allow our bodies and minds to quiet as best we can, as much as we can. Allow our breathing to slow, to settle us into a deeper peace. Remembering as we do that each breath joins us with all life, shared with one another, with all creatures, with all living beings. Part of one life, one family, one reality beyond naming. So natural from this deep peace, joined with one another for prayers to arise, yearnings of our hearts, prayers from our hearts, from a place of compassion for all beings, from and to the God of many names, God of our hearts. Prayers for all sorrows named and held today, for all those who sorrow or suffer, who've been named, those unnamed, wherever they are. Prayers that all will be safe and free from harm. Prayers that justice and peace may grow and grow. And each of us with our unique personal prayers for those we love, even as we pray for the health and safety of all. Now may our meditations and prayers continue in a time of shared silence. Our anthem this morning will be shared by Chris Marr, Bring Many Names, by Carlton Young. Bring Many Names. Chris.
Bring many names, beautiful and good. Celebrate the parable and story, holiness in glory, living, loving God. Hail and Hosanna, bring many names. Great living God, never fully known, joyful darkness far beyond our seeing, closer yet than breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna,
for one of our great hymns from our hymn book, so beautifully sung by Chris. We have two readings this morning. The first will be shared by Sarah Hurley. Sarah, thanks so much for being one of our readers today.
The first reading comes from Perennial Wisdom for the Spiritually Independent by Rami Shapiro, published in 2013. The term perennial philosophy refers to a fourfold realization. 1. There is only one reality. Call it, among other names, God, Mother, Tao, Allah, Dharmakaya, Brahman, or Great Spirit. And that is the source and substance of all creation. 2. That while each of us is a manifestation of this reality, most of us identify with something much smaller, that is, our culturally conditioned individual ego. 3. That this identification with the smaller self gives rise to needless anxiety, unnecessary suffering, and cross-cultural competition and violence. And 4. That peace, compassion, and justice naturally replace anxiety, needless suffering, competition, and violence when we realize our true nature as a manifestation of the singular reality. The great sages and mystics of every civilization throughout human history have taught these truths in the languages of their time and their culture. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Sarah. And now we'll hear from David Nelson, a second reading from one of those ancient cultures in the language and time of that culture. So David, thanks for being our second reader this morning.
Second reading comes from the Isha Upanishad, verses 6 through 7, composed 2,500 years ago. Those who see all creatures in themselves, and themselves in all creatures, know no fear. Those who see all creatures in themselves, and in themselves all creatures, know no grief. How can the multiplicity of life delude the one who sees its unity? Here ends the reading.
Thank you, David. Thank you both. We come to our time of offering. Each week, we have the opportunity to give to the ongoing ministries of our congregation, and we can also give to the particular outreach offering for the current month. This month, it has been and continues to be gifts to Honduras Hope to meet the many needs in Honduras, particularly following their two hurricanes this past fall. We heard from a volunteer with Honduras Hope last week. I would invite us to pause as we prepare to share our offering and just have in mind and heart, as best we can, those in Honduras in particular, who have suffered the ravages of the hurricane and the ongoing challenges of violence and poverty. Knowing how deeply connected we are to one another. Our morning offering for the ongoing work of our parish and for Honduras Hope. You can find the links, the donate link on our homepage website. Our offering will now be given and received as we hear the offertory, You'll Never Walk Alone, Rogers and Hammerstein.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the
Thank you, Christopher, for the music and for conveying the beautiful message so beautifully. Perennial philosophy or perennial illusion. That's my theme for today. Like many, I know not all, but like many of you, I grew up, came of age during the 1960s, a turbulent decade of many divisions. Sound familiar? Sorts of divisions may change over time, but we come to these times in our national history. During the 1960s, of course, it was a civil rights movement, the Vietnam War and the anti-war movement, the anti-arms race, fear of nuclear annihilation, assassinations, President Kennedy, Malcolm X. Today is the anniversary of his assassination. Martin Luther King Jr., of course, and Bobby Kennedy. What a decade. It was also a time for many, particularly later in the decade and into the 1970s, for spiritual exploration, even awakening, so-called New Age, growing interest in Buddhism, yoga, transcendental meditation, and so on. As for me, while not on the front lines of activism, I did partake in various marches and rallies during those years. And I was among the spiritual explorers, as I continue to be. My spiritual explorations in my late teens included my college years when I majored in philosophy, as most of you have heard me talk about over the years. Majored in philosophy, hoping perhaps to get some answers to the big questions. What's it all about? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Is there a God? And if so, what's the nature of God? And so on. And in the midst of all that, in addition to reading and yet more reading, I learned a little bit of yoga, learned the rudiments of meditation. Further, it helped that by then our family had discovered Unitarian Universalism, a faith that, as most of you, if not all of you know, encourages the sort of exploration that had hooked me, that I was engaged in. It was encouraged as part of this new faith of ours. Well, answers did I find? Well, guideposts anyway, touchstones, a word you've heard me use for the journey. And, you know, if I had to take a dozen books to the proverbial desert island, even today, all these decades later, most of them would be books that I read first then. The Essays of Emerson, Walden by Thoreau, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, the Dhammapada, the Sermon on the Mount, and other passages in the Gospel of Matthew and throughout the Gospels and elsewhere in the Bible. Now, what's been the appeal of these particular texts? Well, in varied ways, whether in Emerson's Oversoul essay or in the Chandogya Upanishad to the parables of Jesus, they all contain expressions of what is called the perennial wisdom or perennial philosophy, a philosophy or wisdom teaching that rang deeply true to me then and still does. We heard Rami Shapiro's thumbnail description, if you will, of the perennial wisdom in the reading. My own paraphrase goes something like this: our individual self, the self that has a name, roles to play, personality, sometimes known as ego not in a pejorative sense, but simply as a name for a name of our singleness, our individual nature. Our individual self is a manifestation of a larger reality, capital R. In fact, the largest reality known by many names: God, Allah, Brahman, Great Spirit, Tao, Source. The Hindus put it this way, affirming that the Atman, the individual soul, if you will, is in the end at one with Brahman, the world soul, as we might put it. Emerson's oversoul, higher self, as some put it. That art thou, the Hindus say. Thou, the individual, art that, the larger reality at the same time. Further, this wisdom affirms that through certain practices, whether meditation or yoga, whatever it might be, we can go beyond knowing in some logical sense that all this is true to experiencing the reality, experiencing that we are each part of, a manifestation of the larger reality by whatever name. Practices can lead us to the experience. And yet further affirms the perennial wisdom, this realizing to one degree or another that we are part and parcel of the one spirit, God, Brahman, and so on, is the most important thing we can do in our lives, to seek to realize this truth. Because to the extent that we do realize this double nature of ours, individual and part of, at one with the whole, to the extent that we realize this, which means realizing the unity of life, we will naturally, overflowingly live more kindly, more compassionately, more lovingly. And conversely, living more kindly, more compassionately, choosing to be kind, choosing to be compassionate, loving, will help us to realize who we truly are in this large sense. But still, is this all true? Is it the way things are? Or is it just wishful thinking, illusion to make us feel better in the midst of a random universe? Which is it? Well, I, for one, find it healing and inspiring, this affirmation that beneath the veneer of personality and individuality, beautiful though we are as individuals, but beneath this outward appearance, beneath our worries, we are more than our personality and worries, part of one another, part of the whole, intimately interconnected. I find this healing, inspiring, but that doesn't necessarily make it true, does it? Wishful thinking and illusions can make us feel better too. So again, which is it? Well, beyond the words and ideas, I do believe that I experience now and then at least a taste of this larger reality that we're part of. And I expect most of you do too, though you may not name it, you may or may not name it as such. You see, in the end, it may be simpler than these grand words make it sound. For example, the other morning, just a couple days ago, I woke up feeling a little tired and creaky. So I woke up, stretched, went over my to-do list in my head for the day, did my physical therapy exercises to work on a somewhat strained rotator cuff, slightly worn. In other words, I was starting my day pretty much completely within my individual self, skin and bones, daily concerns, ego. And after a while, I went out for a run in the gentle snow. And after a while, my legs loosened up, and without any particular effort beyond getting out there to do the running, I found myself feeling in this gentle falling snow, just part of it, at one with it. The snow, the winter scene, my neighborhood, neighbors, even though I couldn't see most of them, just began to feel that I was part of it all, a reality larger than my individual self. So surely just enjoying, but more than enjoying, feeling part of it all. I think this is a taste of the perennial wisdom, a taste of the reality. Another experience the same morning and in many days before and since, seeing on our screens the results of the storm in Texas, knowing that people were freezing in their own homes, knowing that people were worried about the health of their water, or whether they had any water at all, and feeling, not having to make myself feel, but feeling, experiencing compassion for these people I'd never even met. Now, why would I feel compassion for people I didn't know, hadn't even met? Because we are all kin, we are all connected, we are all part of one larger reality, including beyond the human world, including all beings, of course. So, though there are indeed spiritual practices which can lead us perhaps to have this sort of experience more often, I think it also helps just to notice when we're already having what may seem like a mundane, everyday sort of experience, yet profound, I think, experience of connection and oneness with nature, with one another, we do all have these experiences, whether we label them as mystical in some highfalutin sense. Just noticing can help us connect and know we are connected. Aldous Huxley, who had composed, created back in the 1940s, I don't know, a couple, 200 or 300 page, dense compendium of readings, and his commentary on the perennial philosophy. And the book is called The Perennial Philosophy. So he researched all this and so on. Near the end of his life, he said, "It's a little embarrassing that after 45 years of research and study, the best advice I can give to people is to be a little kinder to each other." Well, I don't think he needed to be embarrassed. He simply had had the sort of experience that the poet T.S. Eliot, and it's an experience perhaps many of us have had one way or another, that T.S. Eliot expressed when he wrote, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." I think maybe my journey has been a little like that, and perhaps yours has too, in one way or another. Well, we're living in another time of division, polarization, tumult, now 50 years after the 60s, more than 50 years. So I preached this sermon this morning, not just because it's the upcoming topic for the class I've been leading on the world religions, a personal journey. Our topic will be the perennial wisdom, perennial philosophy. No, I preach it because I fervently believe that we all need to hear this message, take it to heart, perhaps see it in our own experience. This message of life's unity beneath appearances, life's oneness beneath the manifold appearance. We need it to begin with right now, perhaps to help us through the loneliness and isolation that so many have been experiencing for the last year during this pandemic, or at any time for that matter. We need it to inspire us to be among the healers of all the divisions that we know are all too real these days. And as you often hear me say, it's not that we all need to do something big and all-encompassing to solve all the problems of the world, to heal all the suffering. We can't, even if we tried or wanted to. I think that desire, that yearning, comes from the place where we're connected to the whole, to the larger reality, by whatever name. That's God speaking through us, wanting to heal everything. But as individual manifestations, we can only do what we can do. And that's everything. To do what's right in front of us. To speak the next kind word. To share, whether with friends or on social media, share words of unity rather than division. And so on. To smile through our mask as best we can. Smile with our eyes, right? Remembering that we are part of a big team, the biggest team of all, a huge team of helpers and healers in this together. You know, I share this with you fairly often because I need to hear the message too. I have that same yearning that you do, to want to solve all the problems, heal all suffering. And I need to remind myself to do what I can do, what's right in front of me, even as I remind you of the same. Remembering too that as we do whatever we can do, everything ripples, for better or worse. Everything ripples, never stops rippling from and back into the oneness that we are. Echoing the Upanishad that we heard earlier, seeing ourselves in all creatures in ourselves. In that same spirit, to conclude, when the Hindu teacher, Guru Ramana Maharshi, was asked, how are we supposed to treat others? How are we supposed to treat others? He said, there are no others. Amen to that. Blessed be. May we carry on in the spirit of love and compassion and kindness. So may it be. I will extinguish the flames lit with love. I cannot extinguish the love. I will extinguish the flame of our chalice of our faith in truth, in justice, in peace. I cannot extinguish those and other values. We carry those with us as we go forth, wherever we go. Going to sing again. The hymn is Over My Head. It's number 30 in your hymn book. Each verse concludes with, there must be a God somewhere. And I know among Unitarian Universalists, it's not a word that some of you, it may be exactly the word you use for that larger reality. Others may have other words. Translate however you like. It's a great old spiritual, Over My Head, number 30 in your hymn book. I know where I see angels. I see them spread out on my screen here. You see them too. We see them every day as we walk the streets, wherever we go. If we look carefully enough into another's eyes, we see an angel, another manifestation of love, compassion. May we honor the angel within us, honor the God within us, the love, the kindness, the compassion that can flow to others and change the world. So may it be. Amen. Blessed be. Katie Weintraub, be thou with us.
Be thou with us, now and always, now and always. Blessed be.
My scarf is yellow. That was by the African-American composer Hale Smith. Go in peace, my friends. May peace attend all your days.